All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Mini Debates. Today we're debating if you would rather want to go into the future and see your grandkids and your kids' kids and all those people that you probably wouldn't get to see because you would die, or go into the past and see all the people who died before you came. So, I think it's very obvious that you would want to go into the future. A couple of reasons. First, you would want to see what legacy or what thing that you created ended up becoming as a result of your kids. So if you were like super successful, or maybe not super successful, or whatever you did, you would want to see how that impacted future generations before you. You already know what happened in the past. This is why I don't see an impact.
Weak.
I don't see an impact going to the past because you already know what happened. You can't change anything, right? I can't change the future. You can't change the past. So if you go into the past, you're just seeing like your great-great-grandfather, which is a cool moment, but it doesn't really matter. The second argument is that your great-great-great-grandfather probably doesn't really care about you. Now, the reason for that is because going into the past, they have no sort of material relationship with you. You only have a relationship with your grandkids, and if you're lucky to live enough, their kids. But usually most people don't see their grandkids' kids. Like, great-great-grandparents don't really exist for a lot of people. So, if you have the opportunity...
But if your argument is that people in the past won't have a relationship or care about people in the future, then why do you somehow have a care about what your grandkids or great-grandkids are?
Because
doesn't your own concern validate your argument?
Going back into the past... No.
Or are you just better than your ancestors?
No, because going back into the past doesn't matter because they never knew you. Going into the future means you get a chance to know them. That is a good thing if you get. I'm not questioning if it's good or bad. You don't think you would introduce yourself to the past people like, yo, what's up, great grandpa? I don't know what that does. Oh, versus seeing your great grandkids' kids and seeing what happened as a result.
But you can't. But you can't. If you can't change the future either, right?
No, you can't.
So what's the impact?
You get to see them.
But you get to see the people in the past. Like
I just don't think that matters as much as seeing.
Okay, so explain now. Read a warrant. Okay, this is my point. You did not want. You made a giant point and did not give an actual explanation.
Well,
now why?
Maybe you just weren't listening to the explanation.
Go ahead. Try.
Going back into the past, that person never knew who you were. So there's no relevancy for them being able to see you or for you to introduce yourself, have a relationship. In the future, if you get a chance to see that person and introduce yourself and say, hey, I am the reason why you are here, I think that is more important. You going into the past is just a descendant of that person. There is no impact to that. You just get to say, hi, I'm your great-great-grandkid. You telling the person, hi, I'm the reason for why you're here, to me, is a little bit more valuable and more important.
You don't think being able to see who the... So do you think that conversation that you have with the person in the future being like, I'm the reason you're here, do you think that's important to that person?
Yes.
So then my question is, in like the retroactive sense,
I don't know why it's important to the older.
Why is it not important to you? I'm saying, why is it not important to you to go back and see the person that made you?
Because it doesn't do anything.
But then it doesn't do anything for the person in the future either.
No, it does.
Wow!
Because the person
you can't have it both ways.
Because you get to learn about what life was like during their time. In the past...
During their future?
No,
you get to learn about...
Wait, this is a question of me going into the future. It's not a question of... Yeah. I get to see the world in the future and get to tell my kids, what the world was like in the past. You already know what the past is through history. I don't think you have to go back to see that.
Well, I'm just gonna. That's the point I'm just gonna make. I'm gonna make a wide sweeping race baiting statement right now. If you're black and you give an answer that is not the past, you don't care about your ancestors. Listen, if you're black anywhere, your answer better be I'm going to the past. I have one word for you. Roots, people. Roots. Do you know how incredible we would solve so many cultural problems for black people if they could just go back in the past and be like, this is my great-great-grandfather in Gabon, or this is my great-great-grandfather in Senegal, or this is my great-great-grandfather in Ghana, and then you could identify with that culture, you could learn those things. It would be incredible. The main thing that makes one of the things that makes anti-blackness and kind of the slave trade so problematic is the very theft of being. I truly do believe that. So for me, the ability for black people to be able to go back in the past and to be able to in order to do this, in order for this simulation to make sense, you have to be able to go back as far as you want, right?
Yeah.
And you have to be able to go in the future as far as you want.
Sure.
So I could just go back before the slave trade. Well, not me,
but I think you could stop it, though.
Yeah, no, you can't stop the slave trade. But you could see where you were from, so you could still... Because that's the whole point, right?
Well, okay, so I'm going to contest, how does that create the cultural bond that is necessary for you to feel a belonging to.
Bro, there are a bunch of people that go to random places in Africa, like during the year of return. Like there were just so many people, black people that came to Ghana, and they were just like, I feel a connection here. And then a lot of them like stayed and learned Cree and stuff.
Worse to see a lot of your ancestors in a horrible position.
No, you simulate. You go before they were in the slave. Nobody said you had to like.
Oh, so you're talking about before anything bad happened?
Yeah, before. So you could identify with who your ancestors were before the slave trade. You could figure out what your original African culture was, and then you could identify with that culture in the future.
So we're talking about 2020. That is literally like almost hundreds of generations ago.
No, it's not hundreds of generations.
Yes, it is. It's 2020. You're talking about before the slave trade.
1619. That's not hundreds of generations. That's like 12 generations.
That's a lot of generations.
Yeah, it's a ton of generations. Yes.
Like you have no relationship other than the cultural stuff to the person.
Well, that's a pretty big relationship. You were just like, oh, yeah.
No.
That's like being like, you have no money except a bank account with $34 billion in it. It's like, that's a lot of money.
In terms of your grandparents, right, or your grandparents' parents you didn't have a connection to, you were talking about people you literally never have seen.
Yeah. And
I think the cultural thing makes sense.
I think that matters. I think that for like part of the reason why your argument doesn't make sense is you assume that for people the way that they think about time and the way that they think about familial relationships are not linear. I'll give you do not withstand the bonds of time. So I will give you a perfect example. I'm from Ghana. My uncle, his name is Kofi Ayim. He is a family genealogist. So, like, he studied our family genealogy, like, and we literally have, I wish I brought this here. I wish I knew we were doing this today. But he's written a book just on our family for no reason. And he has literally traced our family all the way back to an original African folktale story. The Anansi the spider story. He has a family tree that begins at a spider and ends at me. And every time I walk by, I can literally, I am just as fascinated to be like, who is this random blob or this random box right here, even though it is literally 7 generations above me.
So you are not fascinated to see the 7 generations that come after you?
I'm it's not that I'm not fascinated. I'm way more fascinated to see the people that made me than to see the people that I make in the future. I'm way more fascinated at that process, especially as somebody that holds ancestry as something that is valuable.
Right.
Ancestry matters so much to me, and the idea of ancestral bonds that pass time that I can even perceive matters extremely to me. Like, my perfect understanding of this is like the Black Panther scene. Like, there's a reason why when that dude dies or when that dude is on the brink of death, I'm saying that dude, when T'Challa, rest in peace Chadwick Boseman, is on the brink of death and goes to the ancestral plane, he goes to see his father and that's dead in the past. There's a reason why in the scene he doesn't see the people in the future, right? Yeah. There is a more valuable connection to understanding people in the past, and even though you cannot change that past, their understanding of what that past is will deeply influence the way you navigate your life in the present.
Right, because a lot of us, if we decide to have children, in terms of looking at our future generations, a lot of us get that contentment or that fulfillment by seeing our children or even seeing our children's children, but we never get the opportunity to see anyone that came before us except for our parents. So there's very limited sort of access there.
You've won the cultural argument. I don't think I can contest that. That's definitely true.
No, so basically what I'm saying, if that is true, basically the argument is if you're black and watching, I should have won your ballot by
probably. And that's a very
so Amit is now only talking to white people, which is only talking to non-black people, which is problematic. Problematic people. All right, keep going.
Yeah, I definitely can't contest this. People who have been robbed of their culture for obviously unethical reasons, going back and having a deeper relationship, even if they can't change what happened,
outweighs anything.
Outweighs anything, definitely.
So
my question now is, if we get rid of that, you're right on that argument. Going into the future, would you be able to warn that future kid about something that would help the trajectory of the universe? I know you can't change it. You're obviously gonna have a conversation. Then, maybe you have a conversation with ancestors.
Okay,
is that valuable?
So for example, I warn my kid about the dangers of climate change, the imposition. Why would I need to warn them if they've already seen it? It seems like they more than anything. It seems like more than anything they would need to warn. You would go to the future and they'd be like, "Hey, this is the thing you need to stop in your time." You go to the
past and warn them about the stuff that's gonna happen.
Yeah. Basically, I could go to the past and be like, "Hey, don't be
Get ready, it's about to suck.
Yeah, don't be. It's like, hey, you live really close to this castle. I would move if I were you. Right, that's something you could theoretically do, but also you don't want to do that technically because then butterfly effect, and then
that would be a good way to. That would be something good to do for the space-time continuum, right?
Could you imagine if we just
everything would change?
If we literally just went back and warned black people, warned African people that white people were coming to steal them and put them on ships. Like, hey, they have this thing called a ship. If you see this vessel on the ocean, sink it. Could you imagine how different the world would be if they knew?
That would stop slavery?
I mean, if we
still find another way.
Well, I mean, slavery is a broad term. It existed before, the transatlantic slave trade, so there would still definitely be an element of slavery. The question of whether or not it would be chattel slavery built on racial boundaries would be different. If we just sank all the ships, no, I mean, they'd all be at the bottom of the ocean.
Wow, yeah, that's something to think about.
So there's no benefit to going to the future, basically. Because I don't see an answer.
Did we finish this?
I'm trying to think. I don't think there's an answer to the cultural argument. I'm trying to think. Is there some benefit now to the future?
I guess maybe there's so I guess we might be done with this portion, but I'm curious at this point about whether or not. So what are your thoughts? I clearly have been able to trace a valuable connection to the past because of this culture thing. What is our valuable connection to the future? Because I remember we had this conversation before, and you were like, I don't care about people that deep.
Yeah, that's why it's hard for me to make this argument.
Yeah, because you literally don't believe this. You don't care about this.
Yeah,
I don't know if you care about either side of this, but I know for a fact you don't care about the side.
Well, I care about the past because that argument makes sense. Just because you want to live your life in the present in a meaningful way, and if you go to the past and that influences the meaning you have in the present because of all the knowledge you've gained, that's important.
Yeah.
Going to the future, the original argument I said was that the person in the past doesn't care about you.
Here's the thing. You
made an argument that you care about the person in the past.
Yeah.
So my question is, do you care about the person in the future?
No. Well,
because personally, I don't.
Yeah, here's the thing. And that's the problem. I think this argument only works if you can say that you care enough about the person in the future.
What would be the reason for that?
To be able to impose some sort of... Because you have to not be selfish enough to be like, I'm going to the future solely for this person. The journey to the future as opposed to the journey for the past is not about you. It's about helping that person in the future. But the other side of it is you also technically can't help them because they would have already seen all of the consequences of your mistakes.
So then what's the benefit of seeing people in the future?
Sorry, this is another thing. How long... Because I know I can go back centuries and figure it out. An interesting question is, do we have centuries in the future left? Is that a thing?
Do you think all the people that are in the future, or your legacy, or the kids that come after you, do you think that you are the sole reason for all the things that they have?
That's what I'll tell them.
Do you believe that?
That's what I will tell them.
But what's the benefit? Because that was my argument in the beginning. What's the benefit to even telling them that? They have their own lives.
It's very ego
outside of my sperm eventually coming, leading to them.
Eventually coming. Sorry.
Eventually leading to...
It's the same thing you could say about the past, generation. Do you think that they really cared about...
No, but David's argument is that's irrelevant.
No, they probably don't care about you, but I'm saying that there is there's something...
12 generations, they definitely didn't care.
Yeah, they don't...
That's your argument. You go to the future because you would be the past to the future, right?
Yeah.
When you go to the future, those kids would value the knowledge that you
have. But
you would be their ancestors.
But the question is, why does he care about them valuing it?
It's not about you caring now. It's about them caring about you.
But why?
There's an impact.
So I see the argument.
It's like a double...
It's your argument in reverse.
Yeah.
I have to be selfless and let them know about
me. But are you selfless?
No, but I don't even think that's your counter-argument. I think the counter-argument is it's 2020. If I'm going into the future, you going back to before 1619 matters way more.
You don't think people are going to care about COVID and all the stuff that
not in the context of his argument.
Not as much as
but they have history. But here's a question, right? When you go
2200,
but people at 2030 will be so disconnected from the 1800s. Their connection will be to 2020.
Yeah, but that's
what their connection.
Right, but the problem is that so you're saying the people in 2030 or 2300?
3,000, whatever.
So the people in 3,000. Okay, here's the perfect point. Right, here's the perfect point. His my thing where you go back to the past, you can literally get cultural significance that will make your life more valuable in the present, i.e. the ability to know that these are my roots and this is where I'm from and this is the homeland I'm attached to, right? And that's something that you can't get anywhere but this simulation, right? In order for it to work, it has to be this simulation where you go to the past.
Yes.
In Amit's world, or in what you're saying, where you're talking about COVID, the question is, when you go to the future to tell them about COVID, right? Do they what do they get out of that they can't?
Her argument is we're so detached in the year 3000 that we want to see what COVID was like, care about it. I just think he has a better argument about what we care about before 1619.
Right. But you said
but they can learn that COVID thing from newspapers too.
That's
right?
what I'm saying. But you can't learn the cultural stuff.
You said 1619, and you said it because there's a cultural relevance to you during that time period.
But before.
But what about all those years? Let's talk about the year, I don't know, 2, 3. What are the years before? Like 1300, 1200. Do you have any sort of attachment or even conception of what those years could look like, or BC or AD? Like, you have no understanding.
Yeah, my only understanding or attachment to those years is about whether or not I want to, like, it's not about the ancestors anymore. It really becomes just about the time period. Like, I just want to see like ancient civilizations being built.
Ancestors from that time period.
Mm-hmm.
How
but
attached
I
are
see,
you to understanding?
That's an interesting thing. That's an interesting thing. I would want to see it what the role of my because that's another thing. Like, what were the role of my ancestors in the project of development? Everybody in ancient Egypt, which is apparently the bedrock of like modern civilization or whatever, everybody had a role in the production and development of that civilization, right? Were my ancestors laborers in that project, or am I the ancestor of pharaohs?
Nobody did anything. Those were like aliens. Okay, that was not humans. You think humans made? Humans did not make those pyramids. Right? Did not make those pyramids.
You fully subscribe to the ancient aliens thing?
I'm just saying. I think the time difference in the years really matter. I think the amount of years and how I'm losing my train of thought today.
You're basically saying going to the year 3000, coming back to 2020 because it's so far away is the same as 2020 going back to the year 1.
Right.
Like, there's so much stuff you missed.
There has to be a limit to the amount of years.
So it would be beneficial from 2020 going to the year 3000 and telling them stuff.
Right.
Yeah,
and
but
it
the problem
would be beneficial going to like 1619 or the.
So basically, we both have an argument. Yours is just.
Mine's just way clearer.
Yours is way more specific.
I think the reason mine is clearer is the point that you made initially, which is that we all have a conception of, like, it's easy for me to make an argument because I have a reference for what the past is. So I have a reference point for determining why it is so valuable to go to the past. Right. Because you cannot predict the future, you have no reference point for explaining your impact. We just have to believe that it's kind of like God, right? It's like it's like this is the difference, and the reason why people that are like atheists are like, I can value science so much more than I can value God, because they have a reference point. They can examine those things, but they don't. It doesn't have to collapse to faith. Yeah. For you just have to have faith in the fact that the process of going to the future will be valuable. Whereas I have empirical proof that it will be.
4 minutes, by the way.
Right. All right. Well, we're done on this. Okay, so that is a good debate. Let us know, would you rather go to the past or the future? I think there's a pretty compelling argument to go to the past, but let us know.
All my black people, I'm watching the votes.
You voted straight Joe Biden.
I did. If you don't vote for me, question mark, question mark, question mark.